So, first of all, welcome everyone to the call today. I'm super excited about our topic, which is perfect your pipeline. And we're going to be talking about this whole idea of making sure that you've got lots of high quality leads coming into your business on almost a daily basis to make sure that you have continual new business coming in. So, I'd like to welcome everyone to the call. We have Yi Lin, Kate Bradshaw, Craig Edwards, and Ben Lai. We're going to be talking about 4 different elements of the perfect pipeline today, and we're going to start from the top of funnel. So first of all, I'd just like to have a quick chat with Yi Lin and just talk a bit about, this whole idea of perfect your pipeline and cold outreach. Do you want to just give us a bit of an insight of who you are, what you do, and why perfect your pipeline is so important?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Yilin from LYL Marketing, and a lot of what I do is in the digital strategy and lead generation space. And for today's topic with the B2B cold outreach, why is that so important? Because I obviously think that you need inquiries, you need appointments coming through in order to grow your business and for your business to thrive. So I think having the right pipeline in place to bring the right type of people is essential for your business growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like when we talk about perfect your pipeline, we're talking about making sure we're getting the right kind of leads coming through. And so, sometimes I say to people, fresh blood is the lifeblood of business. And I think if we don't have a cold lead generation strategy that's bringing new people into our system all the time, we're going to end up in a situation where we get bottlenecked. So talking about the next phase of the process. So I guess once leads are generated, the next thing they usually see of people is their web presence. So I'd like to sort of introduce Kate from Web Today, who's going to be talking a bit about the importance of, you tell us, Kate.
Well, as you know, everything that you look at is designed, well, here in the city anyway. If you're looking at a street light or your phone or a website, it's been designed, and it's been designed to capture your attention, get you looking, and to hold you there. So how do we, understanding that psychology and people's penchant for distraction, how do we keep someone looking, taking action, and doing, and perhaps purchasing at the very end? And that's what I'm going to talk about.
Excellent, excellent. Because it's not really just about lead gen, it's about making sure there's some level of flow, I guess, from an inquiry into an engagement. So there's a lot of trust that needs to be built. And I think
That's
a lot
right.
of people, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you have someone who's clicked your ad, how is your website and your web presence and your whole digital footprint going to reflect on that ad that you have worked so hard and you've paid for? How is that going to reflect when someone comes through to your website? So having something that continues the flow and continues to build trust is super, super important.
So I guess once someone either clicks on our ad or responds to our cold outreach, they enter our world. And
That's
there's
right.
a question around congruence, isn't there? And they've got to make sure that the messaging on the initial contact lines up with the imaging and the messaging of the website and any other components that they come in touch with, yeah?
Exactly. So you don't have to, your job is not only to get them to look at the product image, it's to get them to interact with the entire site and for you to build trust through your understanding of design and psychology and how that meshes together to make someone press the purchase button.
Awesome, awesome. So once we get them in, once they've gone to our website and they've actually hit the purchase button or the sign up now button, they end up moving into the next world, which is, I guess, the nurture world or the lead management world. And this is, I guess, where Craig jumps into the equation because Craig, maybe give us a bit of a snapshot as to where you fit in Perfect Your Pipeline.
Yeah, well, I guess for any business that has to cover sales and marketing, the catalyst in the middle, or I guess the meat in the sandwich is that CRM. And there's 3 key areas where the CRM is going to help any sort of business of any size. First of all, it's obviously going to capture those leads and class those leads. So whether a prospect or whether an existing customer or a customer we need to reach out later on. But also it's going to help us identify their needs and wants of the buyer and the buyer's journey. Are they looking for a product? Are they looking for a service? What help are they looking for? And the third part is really using the CRM is helping to grade that customer or that prospect. So the more interactions use the website, the more downloads, the more videos watched, or maybe even more sales appointments that have been booked, it grades that in your CRM. So that way, as a business owner, you get to identify or who's ready to buy now and who's ready to buy later.
Fantastic. And really, I suppose that comes down to the bottom end of the funnel, which is where the sale occurs. And this is, I guess, where Ben kicks in with Sales Ethos. So Ben, let's talk about, we get these leads, they come into our world. There's a congruence which makes them want to come into our world even further, share their contact details, potentially consume some of our content. They get into our CRM, we categorize and we identify how ready they are to buy. And as soon as they're ready to buy, now the rubber hits the road in terms of a conversion. Let's talk about the importance of conversion in getting the perfect pipeline.
Absolutely. So I am the soft selling specialist, especially working well with people from introverted personalities, or those of you who are looking for a non-pushy, ethical way of persuasion. And so our job is essentially to communicate effectively and to help our clients to make informed decisions. So in terms of what I'm going to cover for the webinar, we're going to look at three key core steps of the sales process, how to make each one of them fully client-centric so that the person really feels like they're being looked after and they're being cared about. And that way the trust goes through the roof and the probability that they'll do business with you is much higher.
Excellent, excellent. So really, when we talk about perfect your pipeline, we're talking about 4 elements today. The first one is getting cold leads into our system. The second one is making sure that what they see trust through the communication that we're having, capturing the data and identifying what stage of sale they're in, and closing sale. So going back to the top of funnel, Yilin, let's talk about the key elements of the perfect pipeline or perfecting your pipeline, and what are the things people should be thinking about when it's cold outreach?
I think when it comes to cold outreach, particularly, people need to understand that you are approaching an audience that does not know of you. Who are you? And they have just no existence. They just no idea who you are. So when you reach out to them, there are probably, I'd say, 3 key pillars that people need to look into. Obviously, the relevance of the message is really important. Yeah. So how do you make sure a message is relevant to the person that's reading it? Obviously, you need to make sure you got the right type of list. A lot of people do that the wrong way. And you want to make sure that you understand their pain points really well so that you can hit it on the nail when you are talking to them. They don't know who you are. You only have a few seconds to get their attention. You better nail it on the head. And the other thing is the offer, which is not often talked about, because you need to give people a reason to basically speak to you. If you are just the same as everyone else, why would they consider you? So generally, there are sort of these 3 key pillars to making sure your message is relevant to the reader, and it would actually get them interested to then book a sales appointment or a phone call with you.
And I guess these days more than ever, because the number of marketing messages being that we're exposed to on a daily basis, the number of people that hit my LinkedIn inbox, the number of people that hit my email, and I'm really looking for something that's not the same, because everyone's saying the same thing. How do we deal with that?
So there's that, again, it comes back, I think, to the level of relevance. So given a really good example, I've got a client that's building dashboards for people. And to make it really relevant, we decided to hone in on a very specific niche, which are lawyers. And we know that, say, lawyers use a specific, 60% of them use these 2 major CRMs. And these 2 major CRMs have a typical problem, which can be XYZ. So to make the message personalized and relevant to the reader, we then say, okay, we reach out to lawyers, and these lawyers, we tell them your pain point is that your CRM does not do A, B, C, D, which are the billable hours and so on and so forth, which are the key information that lawyers need. So when they read that, they're processing it and they're like nodding their head and saying, oh, yes, I do have this problem and I need to solve it. And in that message, you said, this is how I solve it. And that's it. So that's kind of how you cut through the noise, by just really understanding your target audiences and hitting and getting the right messaging across.
Yeah, and I think in these days of automation and generic messaging, it's more important than ever to actually invest the time to understand the problems that your target market has. And the more specific you are, the better your initial engagement is. So I feel like Yilin, you're like the director of first impressions, right? You're saying, hey, if I'm going to knock on your door, I better look like the person that you need, not just someone who's trying to steal money from your bank account. And this is all about the messaging. I guess the second piece, because if you think about that transition of a lead, they go from stranger to trust, right? And this building of trust over the sales pipeline becomes really critical. So, Kate, I guess once we sort of get that message right, so we've spoken to the lawyers, we've said, this is the problem that you're experiencing. They go, yes, it is, because it's specific to our space. I'm interested. How do we make sure that we maintain trust all the way through?
Okay, well, I think one of the key things in maintaining your trust when you're coming from that lead funnel, as Yilin said, is you've gone to a lot of trouble to set a particular scenario or tone. And so when that person clicks through to your website, you've got to continue that tone. And this is really important. So how do you make that tone happen? Well, you use the same imagery, you use the same typography, and that's your brand. So what you're doing is you're reinforcing the brand, which is one of those layers of trust. So they're not just launching out from one ad campaign and going to an almost completely alien website. You've got to keep the flow going and keep that brand and that tone in place. Yeah.
So just making sure that there's congruence in the messaging, that there's no sort of traps, because I think one of the problems is if your branding is not congruent with your messaging, that trust gets cut. And as soon as someone feels...
We do see that all the time when a brand might have a particular brand ambassador, just say it's a rapper. And that rapper engages some people who aren't usually in that market. And then they click through to the website and it's super formal. Well, that's not a fit. So that doesn't fit that market. So you've got to be mindful of who you're actually talking to in your funnel and how that person is going to come into your site and what that market segment wants to receive from your site.
Super interesting, because I think what Ben's going to talk about is this whole idea of making sure that you resonate or you connect with the person you're selling to. And what you just described is it's happening on the website already, even before the communication goes beyond just checking out your website.
Yeah, that's right. The person doesn't even have to read a single word. You're already communicating. It's that first second and a half of impression that goes in.
Yeah, super interesting. And I guess like when we talk about perfect your pipeline, we're talking about cradle to grave. We're saying, hey, we've got to go and find leads. We've got to get them to engage with our content. And then we've got to do some level of assessment. And I guess this is where you jump in, Craig, and say, all right, once someone's arrived at your website, they've seen enough to show some level of interest. Really, I know from a sales point of view, I need some qualification to occur. So just explain how important qualification might be in perfecting your pipeline. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key points that Yilin just talked about is just building that trust and continuing that trust. So a way to do that with CRMs is not going back out with general messages. We can ultra personalize each and every interaction. So if someone comes into it and if you say you're selling barbecues, or they've bought a barbecue, oh, thanks for buying that. Oh, would you like some gloves? Would you like some fuel? Would you like some tongs? It's all those accessories that go with that actual product or service that they've just purchased, not just going out with a blanket generic message. So we can be ultra targeted, ultra specific, and really nurture them through that entire journey, whether it is B2B or B2C sales.
Because I guess with the perfect pipeline, what we're looking for is just a smooth transition from a lead into a sales call. And I know Ben's going to say the more qualified the prospect is, the easier the sales call is. But let's touch on in the perfect pipeline. So if we're going to perfect your pipeline, Craig's done a great job of making sure the messaging is congruent and it's meeting them where they're at. In other words, identifying what they want and making sure we're serving them in that space. What we're hoping is they get to a point where they want to talk to someone. Yeah. How do you see this, Ben, when it comes to creating the perfect pipeline?
When it comes to the pre-sales stage, all of the hard work is done by the branding and by the messaging and by the nurturing. I've worked with some clients where they have hundreds and hundreds of leads to work with, but they're all of varying quality. And so their poor salesperson was trying to filter through and call and call and call, making hundreds of calls a day,
Yep.
spending, and being a highly paid salesperson, that's not a great use of their time. So getting the initial stages set up correctly is a really smart way to go, because it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of effort and sorting through the people who are qualified and less. But nevertheless, once they do enter your world, you still need to do some degree of qualification, because the person's going to self-identify with with your branding, with your messaging, but you still need to make sure that you're a good fit for them, because everybody has their ideal clients, and you don't want to sell to everybody. You only want to sell to the companies or to the people that you're really going to have a good benefit for. So that's what the sales process is for, is to figure out, are we a good match for each other? For what you're looking for, can I actually meet your needs? And does it make sense for us to work together? So that's the way to look at the sales component.
Yeah. And I'm going to put it out there that, I've been doing this for nearly 25 years. And for most people, I look at their sales pipeline and it's underinvested. And what I mean by that is they're not spending enough on their marketing system. They're not investing the time, the money, the effort to create this perfect pipeline. I know for most people, if we perfected their pipeline, their business would just be totally, totally different. So I'd like to sort of bring this together, because I know we're doing a presentation on this and each one of you is going to do a deep dive into your area. But if we talk about the top 1 or 2 key messages that you're going to be talking about at the presentation, and we'll go in the same order, we'll go from top to bottom. What's the key message, Yilin, for you?
I think the key message here is lead generation. There's so many different forms. It's important to obviously identify the right target audience and find the right platform that the target audience is actually using and is actively involved in. And then from there, it's making sure, specifically with outreach, that it's not spamming. I want to get that across. It's not spamming someone. It's actually, if you think about it, it's actually helping someone by solving their problems. So, yeah.
I love that idea, because I think, when we talk about sales in general, I prefer the definition professionally helping people buy. And I think, often if people feel they're being sold, that's pressure. When people feel they're being helped, that's assistance. And I think you're talking about right from the front end. If you're going to do cold outreach, make sure that your messaging you're on message and you're talking to the right people.
That's right.
What about for you, Kate? Key points that people need to address when perfecting their pipeline.
It's the 4 T's. It's tying the trust with the tone, and my pet topic, the typography.
Typography. Yeah, because it's a funny thing, right? People don't think about typography. They don't think about tone. And they just put a landing page up and they say, oh, we're getting no leads, or our leads aren't converting. And you say, well, there's a reason behind it. And I think that, we talked about that congruence of messaging, but I like this idea of 4 T's, because it's really just about making sure that your messaging is congruent with your initial outreach, and then it sort of flows through. And Craig, for you, key messages, key points around perfecting your pipeline.
Yeah, I guess in any sort of purchasing cycle, there's a buyer's journey involved, and there's lead nurturing involved. And the way to do that is through a CRM. That's going to make your day or operating your business so much easier for you, not just for the business owners, but for the sales teams as well. It's going to understand who's who in the zoo, when are they ready to buy, are they ready to buy later, and how we can nurture them on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, because I often see a lot of pipelines with holes in them. In other words, the leads come in and if they don't buy, they just get lost. And I think that's a travesty, because a lot of people just are interested in the information, but they're just not ready to make a decision today, or another priority comes up. In other words, they were interested, now they're not. Doesn't mean the problem disappeared. It just means they're not interested. It's not a priority right now. And I guess what you're saying is that the idea of having a CRM is just making sure we plug those holes. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. And Ben, when we talk about perfecting your pipeline, what are the key messages that you would put to the table?
Yep, there are 2 key areas. The first one is mindset. You have to get your head in the right space to genuinely believe not only in your product and selling, But you also have to have the right mindsets around money and business. You'd be surprised that a lot of well-meaning entrepreneurs, they have a negative association with profitability and money. And so they self-sabotage when they go into the sales process. Then on top of that, once we've set the right foundations for the mindset, then we look at the actual process itself. Now, the great news is that if you are an introvert or you're scared of selling, that if you can follow a process, you can sell. I still remember the old days. My first ever casual job I got was a knife salesman. All I did was read the scripts and I made sales. I had no skill, no personality or anything to fit. So if you can follow a process, you can make sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, like, we're talking about four elements that work together, right? And I don't think any one element's more important than the other, because if there's a hole in the pipeline, leads are flowing out of it, and it creates an inefficient system. So I'm super excited about this event. We're going to be talking about perfect your pipeline, how to make sure that you actually have no holes in your pipeline. There's congruence all the way through, because the other thing that really came out of this for me is the efficiency of a good pipeline. Because I can have a very inefficient pipeline, I can pour heaps of leads into it and still make sales. But if we have an efficient pipeline, it means that we're not getting losses along the way. So our leads are seeing what they expect, and then they know that we're not pressuring them because we're waiting for them to be ready to buy, we're qualifying them. And then finally, when it does come down to the sales process, we're not pressuring to close the sale to make a sale, we're helping. And if we help people through the sales process, all of a sudden it's a customer service function, not a sales function. And I think sometimes people miss this when building pipelines. So I think, this is a very important topic for most people who run businesses, because I think they rely on sort of just, spot solutions to their lead gen problem, to their sales problem. But what we're talking about now is creating a sustainable pipeline that will serve the business for years into the future. So I'd like to thank you guys for just dropping in today and having a bit of a chat. I know there's a lot more content that we're going to be covering during the presentation. And so I just wanted to give people a sense of who you guys are and how this is all going to tie together, because I think, this idea of perfect your pipeline should be an aspiration for every person in business. So guys, thanks so much again for your time today. Really looking forward to the event. And anyone who comes to this event, I know that you're going to walk away with a better pipeline, which is going to improve sales, which should improve business at the same time. So thanks very much again.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.